US President Joe Biden and leaders of the group of 7 countries met virtually with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Wednesday. They all agreed to a new ban on Russian diamonds. As per the joint statement, the countries will ban non-industrial diamonds from Russia by January under the new measures. The Russian diamonds sold by third countries will also be banned from March. The leaders also plan to impose more sanctions to enforce a price cap on Russian oil. Well, for more on the story, we've got DD India's Chris Gilbert joining us with the latest. Good morning, Chris. How does one take into look, especially this particular decision by the G7?
Yeah, well, I mean, it certainly follows through on intentions that they've said earlier in the year. All the way back in May, when the G7 leaders held their summit here in Japan, they said that they were going to target Russia's revenue to continue its war campaign in Ukraine by cutting off, energy revenue, but particularly focusing on the global trade of Russian diamonds. It's now saying that it is intending to target them at the source of non-industrial minerals production and capacity in Russia, but also focusing on those third countries. And this may include BRICS members such as Brazil, South Africa and India, from preventing them and asking them and maybe even pressuring them from importing Russian diamonds. They believe that this is absolutely essential for ending the invasion of Ukraine. It also comes at a time when a lot of the world's attention is on the continued Israeli bombing of Palestinian hospitals and refugee camps. So it's timely for the G7 to remind Moscow and the international community of what it calls its unwavering support for Ukraine.
Also, Chris, what new moves is Japan making when it comes to supporting Ukraine?
Well, there's another $4.5 billion promised, and that's quite sizable considering that previous packages from Tokyo to Ukraine have come in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And this money is really focused on humanitarian aid. Japan cannot export weapons or ammunition. Its constitution forbids it for doing so, although the ruling parties are working very hard to try and find workarounds to allow Japan to export ammunition and weapons at the moment. But it is focused on regenerative aid such as power, resources, and also providing aid to Poland as well to help that country with the humanitarian crisis with the refugees coming in from Ukraine. But look, this is really important for Japan. Experts here in Tokyo are reminding me just this morning that Japan is the only Asian nation inside the G7. It is hosting the G7 this year. It has a few weeks left in doing so before it loses the chairmanship of the G7 for another 7 years. And its last chance to really, focus the agenda for itself, its own interests. And, political scientists in Tokyo have told me that it's a chance for Japan to remind its European and North American partners that it cares about the same things they do, that it cares about wars on the other side of the world, and that way, if any potential conflict were to break out in this part of the world, they can reliably, rely on their assistance in return.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Appreciate you joining us this morning on NewsHour.